All right, how are we
Can you hear
gonna
me now?
do?
Right.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Um,
All right, so how are we gonna do this? I didn't make any. I didn't merge all this in any way like I did last time. Um, how about Lorenz? Do you want to go through your list, and if me or Zuvik have a different priority to one of them, we can then bring it up there, and then we just go like one at a time.
Sure.
I can do the same if you want.
Um, oh, I kind of provided my the ideas that I had. Like, regarding my create a separate list.
Oh, you added the priority
Uh,
to your own list.
uh, so I think I have to create a new list, right? With like all the elements.
Yeah.
So I'm leaving.
Yeah, no worries. Just yell loudly if you disagree with any of the
Um,
priorities.
Yeah, both fine for me. I can I can share my priorities or you share yours, whatever you
If you
prefer.
want, if you want to, that would be nice.
Okay, good. Okay, then let's start with Jason's schema.
You can share
Uh,
your screen, by the way, if you want.
yeah, 1 second. How does it work with Zoom? Oh, you can actually also share if you want, because this will probably take me a few minutes.
I can do it if you want. Yeah. All right.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I just ordered them by priority. So let's start with the most important ones from my side. First of all, well tested. Obviously, we don't want to break stuff. We want our core, which we said is like the schema files, because a lot of stuff depends on it to work. So this is a must-have. Also, validating partial documents, for example, message objects is quite important for a lot of tools. If they just want to, for example, work with, yeah, let's say with messages. And the last one, integrate with IDEs. Um, yeah, but I also would like to hear your opinion about this. Maybe you know more how people actually use schema files. If there are a lot of people that write down the specifications by hand or not. I mean, this basically depends on that if it's a must-have or not.
I think it mainly comes down to nobody wants to write it in hand, but everybody kind of have to right now,
Yeah, unless they use code first, right?
unless they use code first. Yeah. Or they're using a platform that has a visual designer.
Mhm.
But all of these features are related to the JSON schema files that is validating the async API documents, right? So all of these have nothing to do with, or I guess this one does, but otherwise it is mainly about this specific tool validating async API documents, right?
Yeah, I think the integration with IDEs was about what you can actually add to the schemas, like I think also descriptions and stuff like this.
Right. So the auto completion stuff becomes easier to, yeah, you're right. Um,
So what do you say about the must-haves? Any other opinions about this? Or can I continue with the should have?
Suvik, do you have anything?
Uh,
I think so. The only difference I have is this one up here. I didn't find that necessary because if you want to validate partial async API documents, it's like it would be very nice to do it, but we don't have the necessary tooling right now to handle all of those references and splitting those out into components and validate them separately. So I think we are missing a lot of other tool before this one becomes really important. And I think that's why I had this as should have rather than must have. Um, yeah, and then I added the must have to across all programming languages because it's like you just you should be able to have access to those JSON schema documents regardless of what language you use. Because if you build a tool in Kotlin, you should be able to install it as a dependency and access those schema files, in my opinion. Either that or we give it some kind of direct access, like a remote schema or something similar. Because that's kind of the two approaches to getting those schema files, right? That you either download them yourself or access them through a library. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I also assumed that you would actually download it from somewhere so that you don't actually embed it in the language. But yeah, the point remains that yeah, every programming language should have access. So also fine for me to have it as a must-have, even if you don't actually have to do anything to do it to achieve this.
Yeah, I guess that depends on what we put into the can be used across all programming languages, right? Because in theory, it's if we include that you can just fetch it remotely, then we already have it. And then it doesn't really matter whether it's part of should have or must have. Like
Yes,
anyone can fetch it from GitHub.
and all programming languages would be what?
So all programming languages, I think, is mainly those that we focus on.
Okay.
So whatever our group has as a focus, that is the only. Yeah. All right. So I think we should leave this one here. I think I would propose this one moves down. I can see. What about the can validate all official bindings and compatible versions?
Yeah, for me, it's a nice to have, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean,
I I think I would argue that it's higher because right now, like basically bindings is the spec as well. Meaning that if you're using a binding in your async API document, it should validate it. It should has the auto completion features. It should show you all the specific versions that you can use because it's part of the spec itself, almost to the same level as the async API spec itself. Because it's an extension of it.
yeah, that's why I put it under can because it's an extension. So extensions usually are not are not like the highest priority. Yeah, maybe should have is also fine. Whatever you guys think is better.
I think it has to be moved up 1 point. Is there any of these that we can say is can have that we don't have to focus on?
I think the distributed documentation.
What?
The distributed documentation.
This one?
Yeah, I think.
Can you explain?
Validating. I think validating bindings would be like more important than that. Like I think even in our case, like we have been trying to do this for some time now. Validating bindings. So,
Lorenz, can you remind me what this meant? I think it was you that proposed the feature, right? I can't remember what it is.
I think it just came down to how we actually work with references. So you can actually document one part of your system, maybe even in a registry, and then you have a reference to this document. And then your whole spec is distributed. Like this actually happens a lot if you have message-based systems. You have a lot of different documents that you kind of want to still validate. So actually validating references. So maybe even.
So it's kind of related to this one. Like you can, like if you split out your async API document into, you have a file per channel, for example. And then when you define the channel, you kind of want to only validate a channel instead of validating against like the entire async API document. Is that the right?
Yeah, and then if you have maybe one service that you want to document, where you have the messages and have a reference to the channel. I'm not sure if this actually can happen, but maybe you also want to validate that you can use this channel for the service, however.
Can you what's it called?
Rephrase?
Yeah, rephrase. That was
Yeah, I think it's basically the opposite. In the first one, you want to be able to actually just validate your part of documentation. And in the other one, you actually want to validate the whole system with the remote part, because there you have the references. So you should actually be able to fetch the document and then validate it as part of your service.
I think this one sounds more like a parser feature. Does it now? So when you give a parser the document, like the async API document that is scattered, you want your parser to be able to validate that async API document and parse it, of course. So it matches, like, so it fetches those references and validate them accordingly. Does that make more sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, parser and JSON schema, I would say pretty much connected in a lot of ways.
They are. I think the difference I would make is that the JSON schema files is what validates an async API document. The parser is what triggers the action, at least indirectly. So you, for example, could have parsers, but you can also have, let's say, validators if you want to split the features out. So parser is basically just so it enables you to interact with it in your language, like interacting with the document with types. And then you have the validation part that is normally a feature under a parser that uses the JSON schema files to validate your async API document. At least how we have it now. Okay, this one is going to be a bit tricky, I think. I can remove the discussion forward because it's like it's 2 point of views based on, like, it's the same stuff. It's just where do you group that specific feature, right? Because in a sense, you can easily do it under JSON schema and we just keep it there. Right, let's just keep it there and move on. We can always get back to it later. All right, parser. While you talk, I need to quickly put in some power. Otherwise, I'm gonna run out. You can continue, Lorenzo.
Yeah, okay. So under must-have, provide the interface to have the one-to-one representation. Load documents from files, URLs, and data structures. Then it should also have good documentation for the users to actually use the parser, serialize, deserialize documents, and show good error messages, which is also connected to the documentation. So just have a good usability.
Yeah, I agree. I think.
I think you also had the YAML representation under must-have, right?
Yeah, so this is, so that's references. Yeah, I think the only difference is the, yeah, this one I see as more as the, these one are to me more important than this. What do I have? I don't have that many can haves. I just realized.
Yeah, we need some can-haves to actually focus
Yeah.
on something.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. So these one down here are hard to do. Like implementation wise, they take a lot of effort. And removing them from the initial like focus area might be very good. Because yeah, I think I agree with you. Because the rest is more important. Yeah, no mind. I agree.
Does actually anyone keep track of what we agree on? Also for this first project?
I'll make a I'll rewatch it and then make a conclusion.
Okay.
But I could also write something while we do it. Honestly, yeah, let's do it like this. I'm just gonna copy paste what we agree on and then make the proposal like that. Any changes that we want to do, or do we want to keep it like this? And like exactly how you have it learned. Suvik? Okay. Let me quickly grab this one. Was there any changes to this? I think this one was the only one that we kind of didn't agree on. Like, can validate official bindings and compatible versions.
Yeah, is it a must-have or should-have for you?
I see it as a should have, I think. And then I would, this one is a bit,
This was
this
must.
one, you want to have this must have?
I think we said that, yeah. And the distributed documentation, I think we can just remove from there.
All right. Can I make it like a strike through? I can't remember. I think this. All right, next one.
Okay. Code first. Under must-have, yes, it should be able to output a document. Should be also able to document the application through code. So, for example, annotations or whatever this language uses. And didn't we actually remove this integration? No, okay, yeah, we actually removed this the whole integration part and added it here. So yeah, it should be integrated with the frameworks. And yeah, also message documentation is important. So for example, having a class, we should be able to basically generate this JSON schema for this object. This is the most important for me, and optional would be having the reverse perspective, even though I think it's not super hard to do. It's not a must-have from my point of view, and also the broker integration part. Yeah, for me it's not important because I never use this, but I'm also not sure if a lot of other people maybe use it. So yeah.
I agree, actually, I think.
You also have like the frameworks under can have.
Yeah, I think my thought process was that if you take the bare minimum of a code first tool, it's not getting it into broke or into frameworks, but it should be under should have. At least should have, because that's the only way that you get users to use it, is if it's well enough integrated into existing frameworks that they already use. So I agree.
That's
And
also my experience that everyone uses
yeah,
some framework, and you have to have the option to actually somehow use this with this framework.
yeah. I agree this should be can have, because it's not that important. This one I didn't find that necessary. Or at least it's because you wanna generate the JSON schema document to validate messages, right?
Not really. I mean, it's just a part of the spec or of the documentation, right? If you want to document the message, you have to specify like the schema of this object. Maybe we also just mean different things, but for me, it's just like you want to be able to actually not write down the JSON schema by yourself. Right? You just want to annotate something, or however you can actually do it in the language, and then it's auto-generated from the code. I think that's
So
pretty.
almost, have you used Sort? Have you used this before?
No, I don't use TypeScript.
Okay. I think this is more or less because what this tool enables is that you can so it's basically when you define like your TypeScript, in this case it's these set objects, it can generate the JSON schema documents from whatever you describe up here. And this in a sense could be your message payload types. And then the code first tool will take those types and generate the JSON schema. So that means that you basically just annotate your POJOs, if it's Java, for example.
Yeah.
And then it will output the JSON schema document or JSON schema to be used in whatever.
Yeah. I mean, ideally it would also already include it in the whole document, right? That you already have it under message.
Yeah. Right. So basically you have two approaches. You can annotate classes like POJOs, or you can specifically specify the JSON schema document for the message. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, whatever is more natural in the language. As you said, like in Java, you would use an annotation. If you like use a more functional way in TypeScript, this is also fine. I think it's also like should be consistent in the whole code first approach. Like you shouldn't actually annotate some stuff and then you have to call some methods for other stuff. This would also be not nice, I think. I mean, it's also cool if you already have some library that actually generates JSON schema from TypeScript types. You don't have to do much because you can just use this library under the hood. But I think it's actually important to have the option to generate JSON schemas because from my experience, like this is the this is the biggest deal breaker for a lot of companies that have a lot of microservices, a lot of messages. They don't want to manually type down the JSON schemas and also maintain it because this is also a big problem. If you change the class that represents your message and someone changes something there, then you also have to change like your your async API documents.
Yeah. Exactly. That should never have. You should never have a detached or decoupled async API document and a code in
Yeah.
theory, right? Yeah, I agree. Stuart, do you have anything for?
I had this question about this one. So the first one we have can output async API documents from code. So for this we need to be like able to do this, right? Like generate JSON schema from message to records. Otherwise you cannot generate the async API files.
You're really
Okay.
hard to hear. Or is it
What I'm
just
saying
me?
is,
That's
Or-
also hard, but I think I can also try
Okay.
to repeat what he said. So I think he just meant that in order to generate a async API document, you also have to already include the JSON schemas for messages. That's what you meant, right? So it's a part of the
yeah,
first point.
the first point.
Yeah. Also fine for me. Maybe you can just add it as a comment to not forget it.
Which part?
The the generate JSON schema, maybe you can just remove it as a must-have and add it in braces in brackets after the first point.
In brackets after the first point. I mean up here. So it's like a
behind the
sub,
first point. Behind
like a
the
sub.
yeah. Like this, yeah.
It's almost like a sub point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. True. Yeah. Good point. All right. Schema registry.
Okay. A lot of must-haves. Maybe I can just say the can have. That's quicker. So I think it's not super important that it should be used as a part of a platform, and you actually
Yeah.
have the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have something different to it? I think the only one that I had was should have for the API stuff. But if you make anything like a service, there should be an underlying API that you expose this anyway. So to me, it kind of comes natural, even though it's a should have, it's naturally solved if engineered correctly, in my mind at least, that there is an underlying API that is accessible by anyone
But how would
that
you
you
actually,
expose.
how would you use it without an API? If you want to
Now that's
store,
my point. Like when you build when you build a schema registry solution, there is an underlying API. So
Mhm.
like that's why I said probably why I said should have, because it naturally comes when you build the solution. It's just not first priority to expose that API and manage that API in the terms of like being a public facing, at least not in that like to me the first priority is building the service first, then exposing the API afterwards in those steps, kind of.
Okay.
But I can ride the wave of must have as well, because you're gonna have it. It's just a matter of when do you expose it and when do you manage that public facing API.
That's true. I think it's not usable without an API. But anyways, we said we don't want to focus on the schema registry, so it's not too important, I think.
No, I agree. So I kind of skipped code generation, or at least didn't add it at all. I think we agreed that just staying on those 4 was enough for now.
Yeah.
All right, so we kind of have our
I think
proposed.
you can still then copy the point from my comment to just have it as a complete list, even though
Sure.
it's not important actually what we have there.
I can do that.
Just so that we don't have to do it again
Sure.
when we continue.
I want to go through it just so we have it.
Sure. Maybe also just about the can haves. What did I say there? I actually don't remember what we meant with those helper functions.
So it's basically like when you generate the code, it gives you
Okay. Yeah. I remember.
like something like this.
Mhm.
So it just generates like this helper function that where you don't have to worry about what's the topic, what's the right message type, what's the right parameters, what the right headers is. Like all of those are given to you in the language, basically. At least that's what I meant by this.
Yeah, I think it's nice, but not a must-have. Also generating the libraries would be nice for integration purposes, but it would also work without it, I think.
Yeah. I think it depends on the use case. If you're the owner of the service, then you don't need this external stuff. But if you're integrating into a third part or exposing an API, for example, and want something managed, then it makes sense. But yeah, I agree. It's definitely not a priority. And it's rare that you see public facing or external APIs that has an SDK, for example, in event-driven architectures, at least for now.
Yeah, I think it's an
Like
edge case. I never saw actually an auto-generated library that is publicly available for others to use. I mean, the only example I know is the Prisma thing, right? Where you have, I think they generate like their own library that you can use. But I don't think anyone else is actually depending on it.
No, otherwise it's full. Like there's companies such as Speakeasy. I don't know if you heard about it. Speakeasy API. So like it's a platform that manages SDKs, for example. So you give it an API specification, it props out a library that you can install, and then it basically has all of the features that we just talked about, like message types, and then you basically just get the SDK, like a fully fledged library that is released, and all you have to do is install it, and that's it.
I think AWS also has something like this because they don't want to write all the SDKs by hand. I think they have some specification, then you can kind of auto-generate it.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a nice idea, but pretty complicated, I think. And I think not too many people actually would want to use this.
For now, it's a small user base for sure.
Yeah.
And you would need to solve all of these problems first, regardless. And then, like, for example, when you build this one down here, you build upon that it can generate message payloads, like on top of headers, etc. So I agree. Anything you want to add to it? No. Cool. So we have a proposed list. All right. What is our next steps after this, by the way? We can spend a few minutes talking about this. Or unless you have anything you want to bring up, any of you? No? So yeah, what's next steps? Now it has to be concrete. Now it's more getting your hands dirty in some way or another. It's just a matter of how do we do that.
We start with proposal. We call them must-haves.
Can you repeat what you said, Suik?
Maybe we have a proposal with all the must-haves. Like those must-haves.
So we add all of the must-haves to the project page.
Like you put a proposal and what you're gonna focus on. Which just putting out ideas.
I think we also want to work on different stuff, right?
Yeah.
Also based on what I heard you say, Lorenz, like you're more interested in the code first stuff and then the parser, for example. So what if I added all of the must-haves? And actually, it would be better if you want to help. So what if we add all of the must-haves as items? And then, all right, that's not what I wanted. Wait.
Maybe add it in backlog.
What? Sorry.
When we add all of those in backlog, like so you have a list of things you wanna.
Yeah, I think what if we add all of the items here? And then we kind of form a vision or a roadmap, or not a roadmap maybe, but what are we most excited about working on, for example, or wanting to look into? So we can split up and then use these meetings to coordinate all the effort and figure out where we need more coordinating effort or working together.
I think we can also do this in the backlog. If we really just create, how is it called, issues or tickets on GitHub? It's an issue, right? Everything is an issue in GitHub. So add all the must-haves and then we can assign them to us.
Yeah.
hopefully not too many remain unassigned. And then I would say we don't have to actually create a big roadmap with timelines. I think everyone can just work on it and then share their experiences or ask questions in the meetings. I think this would be the best solution, at least for me. If I can just
No,
assign some code first stuff to me and then work on it and write down some questions or proposals and then get your feedback on this.
I agree. Definitely no timeline. We basically just take one at a time. One thing that could be nice is how do we, because at some point we're going to reach a point where we have all of the must-have, for example, that we can tick them off in the tools that we work in as being completed, or at least to a degree that doesn't need any more involvement right now. So that way that we can use the backlog to, let's say, for example, that Lawrence, you want to focus on Kotlin, I want to focus on Python, and let's say Suvik want to focus on Go. Then we look into, okay, in those three languages, is this solved, for example? In these three languages, are these solved?
I mean, we can actually use tags if we want. So tag them with the priority and the language. Then we have a lot of issues in the backlog. I don't know if you want this, but for me it would be nice. And then you can actually filter by language and priority and see what the state is in this board. I hope this is possible. In Gyro it would be possible. Not sure if it's there.
Usually I would be able to there. Can I not? So we have priority. We have size.
It's in the settings, I guess. You can add new fields in the setting.
Yeah, but I want to add labels. I don't think I can do that without converting it to an issue, but that needs a repository. The question is, maybe we should add a repository just for us to add labels and everything and issues, concrete issues. Because right now we, like, for example, this one here, it's just part of the community repository. But it might not be the best location for it. Do you think that would make sense? That we add a repository for coordinating efforts for a working group? Or too much?
Do we have access to Gyro?
No.
All right. I mean, I don't like repositories without code, but if this is the only option, then also fine for me.
I mean, alternatively is that we add the labels to the community repository. But I think we have to not get approval, but probably get something. Because it's a lot more than just.
Or we can maybe add a new field in the project as labels and treat it as labels.
So you mean like in the
Project.
Do you mean like in the description?
Or something like this. Can share.
Yep.
Okay, you have disabled participant speech.
You should be able to now.
Yeah, so So the project you can have new field, right? So you can just have a new field
Oh,
with single select and add options as labels.
you're a genius. Perfect. All right. All right. So do we want to do something for next meeting? Like in the meantime, something to work on?
Do you mean create the tickets now or something? I guess.
Do you folks want to help me do it?
I think it should be easy to create a first batch, like for one language, and then just clone everything.
You don't want to have one issue that fits multiple languages?
I mean, then you don't have then you can't tag it, right? With the language.
So we can, for example, we could, for example, have one issue per must-have, for example. And then we add labels where we add each language as a label.
Mm-hmm.
And then once that issue has been addressed in that language, we remove the label, for example, or add something else. So we use the labels to kind of like filter it.
Okay, yeah, also fine. I mean, we can also just divide it.
What do you mean divided?
By topic. So someone creates the tickets for JSON schema, someone from parser, and someone for code first tool. I think
Yes.
those actually all, and then we have actually 3 topics.
Unless one of you volunteer to do all of them. Yeah, let's do it like that.
If you want, I guess with you, Thomas, on a catch up or something, you can work together on this.
You want to do it, Suvik?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
like we can sit in a catch up and I mean, I don't know. I might need some help, so we both can sit and.
For sure, I can definitely help you. Yeah.
So it's like this Thursday we have catch up, right? So with the catch up, we can just sit and.
Yes, we can take it later. I can help you set it up and help you get started with it, for sure. So we are off the hook. Maybe we, as an addition, because there is 2 weeks until next meeting, right? What if I'm going to propose that we like roughly look into each of the must-haves in the language that we want to focus on. So we have a rough idea of whether something is already available or something is like need attention maybe. And also what we want to focus on of all of these like priority lists in each of those specific like tooling areas.
Yeah, I think this is already like, yeah, just one more question, because we said we want to tag the languages.
Mm-hmm.
How do we assign people then to the issues?
It's gonna be, we can have multiple people per issue. So that means that you unassign yourself when you're done, for example, with it.
Okay.
I think you can assign multiple people, right? Let me try.
Yeah, you can assign manually.
Yeah. I mean, we can just see how it works. If it doesn't work, we can change tactics.
Okay, so if it's possible, yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, like even if we are opening issues, it will just be the issues will be open in the community repo, right?
for now, maybe just keep it as an item. So we can create like in the GitHub project, we can create it as an item without being an issue. And then we can, it's more, I don't want to bombard the community repo with too many issues. But on the other hand, I don't think anyone will complain, so we can do however we want to do it. I don't know.
So
What do you guys think?
Then it makes sense to have like to open one the repo for it.
We can also do it like just keep adding issues until someone tells us no, or cry or are upset about it in the in Slack. I don't know what you guys feel like. I don't mind either. All right, so actionable items for next time is Suvik gonna create the must-have as task or like a issues, and I'll help you with as much as needed. Each of us then also look into those must-haves. How well supported is it currently in the languages, in the language that we want to focus on? And I think that's it, right? Or was there more?
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay, let's do it then. All right, thanks to folks for joining, and see you in 2 weeks.
See you.
See ya.
Bye.